So you think, and Vaskai maybe also thinks that that insight of oneness will lead people to treat each other and the earth perhaps a bit more kindly.
And consciously.
Consciously.
That's right. More kindly, more compassionately, more lovingly. And eventually, if we can do this, I think it will be a more peaceful world. I'm not saying we're ever going to be without wars. And
we're not all going to get along.
That's right. I don't envision that it's going to be a perfect world.
Right.
But at least where it'll be better than it is now, and better than the direction we're heading right now.
Right. I know both you and Ken, and I was thinking about how, you're working to transform the consciousness of the planet and the hopes to target, a specific growing mass of people that are awakening, and recognizing that that the polarity between what could potentially go wrong and what could potentially go right are both really increasing. And especially because you were previously a competitor or a swimmer, it seems to me like the ultimate competition.
It is.
Let's see if we can win the trophy, win the
gold.
keep the earth,
Right.
keep the planet.
That's right. Win the gold. There's a lot of truth to what you're saying. In fact, I see really the competition is against time, and against ignorance.
Right.
We've always had in Buddhism what we call the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. But really, it should be the other way. Out of ignorance comes greed and hatred. And in the time of the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, there seemed like there was a lot of time ahead of us. Now, 2,500 years later, time seems to be of the essence. And that the real competition right now is a race against time. Are we going to become more conscious first, or are we going to destroy ourselves first? So I do see, and I've seen this since maybe the mid-90s, that I started talking about that the real competition is against time and ignorance, which includes, of course, our greediness and our hatred out of fear. A lot of that hatred also is out of fear. So it is the ultimate competition. It's the one that we can't afford to lose. And I always like the high goals. You
like a ticking clock too.
I like the challenge.
Yeah,
it's true. I love the challenge. And it's not that I expect to see necessarily in my lifetime the shift. It may happen, it may not in my lifetime. I would like to do as much as I can towards that goal, even if I don't see it in my own lifetime, for the sake of the future generations and the future of this planet. Right.
Yeah, and this may be a slight diversion from Vaskai, but probably not. I see a lot too in the Big Mind process lately. You've been really excited and adamant about working with shadow, potentially greed, anger, and ignorance, and some other things. Maybe you could talk a little bit about why that jumpstarts your scooter, why you're excited about that, and what you think the benefit of that is in addition to an awakened state of mind.
Well, I think the shadow work is really, really important, and it certainly has made me much more inspired and enthusiastic. Looking at my own shadows, I'm still discovering shadows that I created, way, way back, and a whole bunch of them. The first time I had an awakened experience back in February of '71, it was like I can now see, which I couldn't see for almost 37 years, but I can now see that what I did was I took everything that I didn't consider to be spiritual or a kind of higher consciousness, because what happened was I shifted from one particular state of consciousness, which was basically based on greed, anger, and hatred, and ignorance, to really finding out who I am and wanting to share that with all sentient beings. But I took everything that I considered not to be spiritual and I kind of made it wrong. So if compassion was good, then being not compassionate was bad. If love was good, then hatred was bad. If awakening was good, then being unawakened was bad, and on and on and on. So I was a highly competitive athlete. competitive as they come.
That's great.
And I couldn't stand to lose.
Right.
I mean, I took loss well, but I couldn't stand while the game was going on or
Right.
the competition was going on.
Right.
It was to win.
Right.
And I was very competitive, and yet when I became so-called spiritual,
Right.
I cut off my competitive nature. So I just disowned that. It became a shadow. I was highly competitive all through my study with my Genpo Roshi, the 24 years that I was with him, and all that time, highly competitive, but disowned. So I had to be the first one ever in history done with koans, the fastest this, the fastest that, you know, and be one of his top students and all that, you know, all that competition was just covert.
Right.
And it was only about a year ago, the summer of 2007, that I had a dream. And in that dream, my Genpo Roshi was there. And we're sitting side by side, kind of like you and I are. And he's sitting where I am, and I was sitting where you are. And he looks at me and he says, "Genpo, are you competitive?" And I go, "Oh no, Roshi, I'm not competitive." "Well, I am with you." And that awoken something in me. And I realized that I had disowned my own competitive nature. And since then, by beginning to own that shadow or disowned voice, what's happened, it's really helped me succeed in my life.
Wow.
And succeed with Big Mind and with the Zen Center and with Vast Sky and with everything, because I'm no longer disowning my marketplace mind. And so you can say that what Roshi helped me do was really return to the marketplace. Just a year ago, you know, and that in the marketplace I can use all those aspects of myself which had been disowned to help me get along in the world and in the marketplace. We could say, quote unquote, the real world, instead of just the spiritual. Because for 36, 37 years, I had leaned towards the spiritual, towards teaching and all that. And even though I ran the Zen Center and many Zen centers, in fact, across the world, in England, Holland, Poland, Germany, and Paris and all that, always we were in the red, always we were financially poor, we were always
begging,
very poor,
always
begging for more money, never having enough, never adequate, never being able to pay people a salary on these stipends, never being able to really afford insurance for them or anything like that, health care, anything like that. And all of a sudden we're doing really well.
Yeah.
You know? And all I had to do was shift and re-own my marketplace mind, my competitor, you know, all those things, but in what I call the triangle or the pyramid effect, where on one side, maybe on our left, we have our kind of marketplace mind, our competitive nature, you know, the left brain kind of thing. And on the right side, we have the awakened mind or big mind or true self, whatever you want to call it. And when we come to the apex of that triangle, we include and transcend. So we include the marketplace mind with all those aspects. We include our spiritual or awakened mind or enlightened mind and all its aspects. And we go from immature and unhealthy to a mature and healthy perspective of all this, where we embody the whole thing as if there's a figure, our figure, one's own figure, in that triangle, and we're embodying the whole. Which of course we always are, and yet
we're just not aware
we're
of it.
just not conscious of it, we're not aware of it, and so we disown certain parts of ourselves.